Cyril, retailing in France, acting as a retailer in France, what's your perspective from outside in, because you're experienced in different countries?
France has a peculiar lease law system which confers to retailers a security of tenure, which is, if you're not at fault, a basic right to have your leases renewed. This very old system enables retailers to be able to maintain their trading activity for extremely long periods of time in specific locations. Basically enables you to have your lease renewed. If not, your landlord would need to compensate you for your loss of business if he does not want to renew your lease contract. What is true now with the crisis, most foreign retailers have been focusing their attention on prime locations, AAA locations, and therefore it is quite important to be able to understand the basic system of security of tenure in order to be able to provide and fulfill your expansion plans.
So Benoît, is it does this complicated system prevent retailers to come to France? Is it not a really complicated country for an investor in property, for a landlord?
No, I cannot speak for all investors because as there is many retailers, there is many type of investors. In general, an investors need and would like to see, first of all, a kind of safe box in terms of country and economy. What I mean by safe box, investors dislike surprises. My wishes is to be sure that tomorrow will be like today. I cannot accept a big surprise. And on this point of view, the French economy and the French country propose this kind of safe box to protect the money invested.
Henrike, does this stability which goes back to the regulation in France, does it make a difference for you when you are talking about French investments? Or what's on your list when you're talking about France?
You can see like stable consumer spending. We've seen stable average income in the past, even growth despite financial crisis. These are all like demographic and macroeconomic factors which make the market in France very interesting for retail investments, for union investment. That's first. Having said that, what type of retail and products are interesting to us? Clearly shopping centers with a sufficient critical mass, with a good location.
What are the tendencies you see in the French markets affecting your business, Cyril?
Well, as a retailer, in terms of the economic situation, we of course go for security. Security means AAA locations, existing sites where we know exactly what the footfall will be, how much turnover we can generate in order to have a profitable store. Some of the some of the retail parks or shopping centers that came out recently have been underperforming. And therefore, we as retailers have been focusing our attention on what already exists, what already has an existence, because we can no longer bet on a better future. We as retailers have objectives to be achieved on an annual basis. We grow with the turnover we generate on our existing portfolio. If we do not generate enough turnover, we cannot grow tomorrow. So we as retailers really opt now for prime locations where we know that it's a secure bet. B locations, shopping centers coming up always carry some meaning for us, but we have to be extremely cautious on how we assess the possible turnover we can generate there. Accessibility, the offering, everything needs to be really integrated, and we have to be very cautious. But it's safer to go for an existing site in which we know already what the footfall will be, where we know how the competitors compete, and we know that these other competitors have been there for a very, very long time, and therefore we have much more security.
So you're engaged with all different kinds of retail properties in France, I learned. Yeah? What are the tendencies you see, and what will you see for future as a advice?
Yeah, I think to come back on the Cyril speech, he told you as a retailer how much he has to be cautious about location. For investors, it's exactly the same because we are not letting and we are not buying as investors square meters when we talk about a retail market. We are buying footfall. When we talk about location, I wouldn't talk only about Paris, Lyon, Marseille, Lille, the largest and the biggest cities in France. Cities with more than 50,000 inhabitants, there is a real market for professional investors and professional retailers. So the prime items is the location.
You're interested in shopping centers, aren't you?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, and is it hard for you to explain your gremiums or your end investors that there is a France outside of Paris?
I think it's not so difficult because they get used to our, or like let's say my kind of argumentation, because I think the key driver for any retail investment is the catchment area and the location of the asset being relevant in this catchment area.
Okay, you see stability, you see no risks, you see well the benefits of regulation in the French markets. Well, this is the opportunities. So what about the threats for France?
Well, from a retailer's point of view, it's only the threat is the competitors. Retail market, especially for brands, it's been a cycle market.
To me, the threats, it's more about economy and politics. The financial crisis has been solved, but has not been paid today. The French economy remains stable and very good as long there is a sovereign debt, which is quite huge and quite important, but a private debt per capita, per habitant, which is quite low. If we increase the private debts per habitant, we have to decrease absolutely the sovereign debts, or there is a big risk for the entire country and economy.
Some things you see?
I actually wouldn't enhance specifically the word threat, because I would see more challenges in the French market in the future, which is, I mean, going more to the real estate, especially the retail assets. If you see the shopping centers, let's say in a Paris region, which are, like, let's say more or less had been constructed in the 70s or the 80s. So I see clearly the necessity of refurbishment there in the next future. Especially correlated with the fact of the downsizing of hypermarkets, which will come up in the next future. And I think these are clear challenges also for current property holders in France to react on the changes here, especially also in the food market, to restructure, but also big opportunities to provide a more and more attractive retail space to their customers.